I've driven this road for 18 years, the same road my father and I carved through Montana rock with our own hands. But that December morning in 2024, I came home to find an HOA gate blocking my land and a man I'd never seen before resting his hand on a pistol, telling me I needed permission to reach my own ranch. Right then, standing in 20-degree cold with my breath hanging white in the air, I knew this wasn't a neighbor dispute, this was war. And the sound that would haunt me, the metallic pop of his retention strap breaking open, would bring back memories I'd spent 3 years trying to bury. I'd been driving for almost 90 minutes when that old combat awareness started creeping back in. Not fear, just the quiet voice that used to keep me alive in Hellman Province, telling me something ahead wasn't right. The Montana sky hung low and gray, promising snow. My truck rattled over the first stretch of my private access road, bed loaded with lumber and fencing wire, repairs I'd been putting off for weeks. When you live alone on 85 acres of mountain country, chores multiply faster than you can chase them. But today felt different, like the land and I were finally speaking the same language again. Because this road, this 11-mile path, cut through timber, rock, and memory, is more than a road. It's the spine of my entire existence. My father and I carved it together back when I still had dirt under my fingernails from climbing pines. His old Dodge pickup rattled like a toolbox full of loose bolts, but he trusted that thing more than most people. I remember standing on the torn bench seat, pointing out where he should dump the next load of gravel. Sometimes he'd stop, kneel down, scoop soil between his fingers. "Roads aren't built by machines, son," he'd say. "They're built by people who need them." I didn't understand then, not until after the war. After coming back to a country that felt familiar but somehow wrong around the edges. Only then did I get why this road mattered. It didn't pretend, didn't judge, didn't make promises it couldn't keep. It just led me home. I knew every rise and dip, every rut carved by spring runoff. I'd patched washouts, dug culverts, replaced fence posts, one by one. This road was mine, the same way my father's hands had been his. The same way his last words had been meant for me alone. "Don't let them take it, Mark. Promise me." I'd promised. Standing at his hospital bed 3 years ago, watching pneumonia slowly steal him away, watching him grip my hand with what little strength he had left. He'd died defending this land from developers once before. The stress had weakened him, the anger had hollowed him out, and I'd sworn I wouldn't let it happen again. Which is why the shape looming ahead made absolutely no sense. A metallic glint in the distance, too straight, too clean. I eased off the gas. A bright aluminum gate, red and white striped arms stretched across the center of my road. A prefab security booth bolted onto concrete that hadn't existed yesterday. My pulse didn't spike, it settled. That familiar combat focus slipping over me like an old jacket. I stared at the thing, blocking my way. You've got to be kidding me. And in that quiet stretch of Montana backcountry, I knew whatever waited beyond that gate wasn't going to be simple. The mountains don't lie. They just wait until you notice the truth sitting right in front of you, and that gate was a lie. I rolled forward until the shape beside the booth sharpened into a man, uniform crisp, boots spotless, sunglasses hiding his face despite overcast sky, posture military stiff. His hand rested on top of a holster. I killed the engine. Silence fell heavy. For a few seconds, neither of us moved. I opened the door and stepped out slowly. Gravel crunched under my boots. That calm wasn't forced. It was carved into me by years of training that never quite leaves. "You planning on moving that gate?" I asked. He pointed to a metal sign. "Blackstone Ridge. HOA members only. No unauthorized entry. This is my road," I said plainly. His voice came out flat and cold. "Sir, Blackstone Ridge Estates now manages this section. I'll need to see your access permit." "An access permit?" "To drive on my own land." "Funny," I said. "I don't remember giving your HOA permission to install a gate." He shifted his weight. That subtle repositioning I'd seen overseas too many times. Not nervousness, preparation. "Sir, if you don't have your permit, you'll need to turn around." Inside me, something settled, not anger, certainty. "You're standing on private property," I told him. "Before you say another word, you should understand that." He knew I was right, but he wasn't here to be right. I walked to my truck, pulled out a leather folio with maps and deeds, powered on my field tablet showing cadastral overlays, Flathead County Recorder's data. "That road runs straight through my land." He didn't look. "Sir, I can't let you through. Orders from the HOA board." I stepped closer, voice low. "Final. You can move that gate, or I can move you. Your choice." For the first time, he hesitated, then his fingers dropped to the holster. Pop. The retention snap broke open, and everything inside me froze. Not the good kind of freeze, the combat-ready kind, the other kind. The kind that brings back sand and screaming and the smell of burning diesel. The sound echoed in my skull louder than it should have, louder than physics allowed. My hands moved before my brain caught up, training older than his badge, older than whatever story he'd been fed. I clamped his wrist, sharp twist. His stance collapsed. I stepped inside his balance and guided him over my shoulder. Thud. He hit frozen ground flat on his back. Air ripped from his lungs. He tried reaching for his radio. His hand shook. His eyes blinked rapidly. I stood over him, steady, barely winded. "Stay down, not a suggestion. You attacked me." He rasped. "No," I said quietly. "You popped the snap." I defended myself. I pulled out my phone and documented everything. The gate, the sign, the concrete pad. The man sprawled in dirt, not out of anger, out of experience. Evidence is the only shield that never fails. He tried sitting up. "You can't go through." I didn't answer. Just walked back to my truck. There was a patch of ground to the right, narrow, uneven, but wide enough for someone who knew this terrain. I eased around the kiosk. Gravel kicked up behind my tires. As I passed him, I leaned out the window. "Next time, don't reach for something you're not ready to use." The look on his face wasn't anger. It was realization. I drove the remaining 3 miles home without music. The mountain silence wasn't comforting. It was expectant. When I reached my driveway, I sat in the truck for a long moment. Hands on the steering wheel, breathing controlled. But inside, something old and cold was waking up. The sound of that retention snap kept echoing, over and over. Pop, pop, pop. Like the sound of a rifle bolt, like metal on metal in the dark, like things I'd spent 3 years trying not to remember. I gripped the wheel tighter. This wasn't just about a gate anymore. This was about the promise I'd made to my father, the land he died trying to protect, the stress that had killed him. And I could feel it starting. The same pattern. The same pressure. For the first time since leaving the service, I wondered if I was strong enough to fight this without breaking the same way he had. The next morning, trouble came wearing badges. 2 Flathead County patrol vehicles rolled down my driveway with cold precision. 2 deputies stepped out, one tall Deputy Hollis, mirrored sunglasses. The other younger Deputy Reed, hand hovering near his belt. They'd been told I was dangerous before they ever saw my face. "Morning," I said from the porch. Hollis didn't return it. "Mr. Holloway, we need to ask about an incident yesterday involving a security officer." "You mean the man who put a gate on my land and reached for his weapon?" Reed's fingers twitched closer to his holster. "We received a report of battery, unprovoked assault." I took a slow sip of coffee. His retention strap came unsnapped. Montana statute makes that a threat. For the first time, a crack showed behind Hollis's sunglasses. His weapon remained holstered. Hollis said, "The snap wasn't, and you know what that means." Hollis shifted tactics. "You're aware the HOA has temporary authority over disputed infrastructure? That road isn't disputed. Their map is forged." Reed spoke up, voice uncertain. "Sir, until the county reviews this, you're advised not to interfere with HOA operations." You're telling me not to drive on my own land? We're telling you not to escalate. There it was, the word, like I was the problem. I walked them to the tool shed, showed them the framed 1986 survey map. Road's been mined long before any HOA existed. We don't adjudicate boundaries. Hollis said, "Take it up with the property board." Then he paused, turned back, took 2 slow steps toward me. When he spoke again, his voice changed, softened, patronizing. "Look, we know men, with your background, can find disputes stressful. Just try to keep a level head, for everyone's safety. We don't want any episodes." The word hung in the air like a stain. Episodes. They'd built a narrative before I even knew there was a fight. Unstable veteran. PTSD. Dangerous. "I didn't escalate anything," I said, voice flat as stone. "But make sure the HOA understands. I defend what's mine." Reed's hand moved closer to his belt. Hollis's jaw tightened. Neither said another word as they left. I stood there long after their cruisers disappeared, listening to that old instinct. They weren't done, not even close. That afternoon, I drove into Kalispell and walked into the Flathead County Records office. The woman at the counter went stiff when I mentioned Blackstone Ridge Estates. "I can bring the files," she said carefully. She returned with a stack too thick for a simple maintenance petition. I sat at a corner desk and began flipping through pages. And there it was. The HOA's petition claimed my road was abandoned, unmaintained, and hazardous. Attached was a parcel map too shiny, drawn with a template the county hadn't even adopted. Lot lines were shifted, subtle, but enough to place a stretch of my road outside my deeds and inside a community corridor. Surgical, convenient, criminal. I flipped to the signature page. Edward Mallory, Assistant Director, Municipal Infrastructure Review, except the signature didn't match the one from 6 months earlier. Different slant, different pressure, different loop on the M. Forged, and stapled to the back, an internal memo for expedited consideration. Stamped, approved. My jaw tightened. They hadn't just planned to steal my road. They'd already filed the paperwork. "I need copies of everything," I told the clerk. She hesitated, then printed the stack. When she handed it over, she leaned in. "You didn't get this from me." Outside, I sat in my truck and stared at the forged signature. Then I texted my attorney, Trevor, 3 images and 3 words. "Found the truth." His reply came instantly. "Get home, we're going to war." For the first time since this began, I felt something like hope. But that night, alone in my kitchen, staring at those documents spread across the table, something else crept in. Fear. Not of the HOA, of what this fight might do to me. My father had fought developers for 2 years. The stress had eaten him alive, weakened his lungs, hollowed him out. I'd watched him deteriorate, watched him lose sleep, watched him grip his chest when he thought no one was looking, and I'd promised myself I wouldn't follow that path. But sitting there at midnight, documents everywhere, coffee gone cold, I felt it starting. The sleepless nights, the constant vigilance, the tightness in my chest that had nothing to do with exertion. I pulled out my phone and looked at an old photo. My father and me, standing beside that same stretch of road. Him grinning, arm around my shoulder. Me, 5 years old, boots swinging, happy. "Don't let them take it, Mark." I closed my eyes and heard his voice, felt his hand gripping mine in that hospital bed. But I also remembered what came after. The funeral, the hollow feeling, the guilt. I'd promised to protect this land, but what if keeping that promise killed me the same way it killed him? What if I wasn't strong enough? The next morning, I called Luis Ortega, former drone operator, now ran a civilian mapping company out of Bozeman. "Gunny?" he said. "It's time." By mid-morning, he rolled in with a black Tacoma full of gear. "Heard you pissed off an HOA," he said, grinning. "These people rewrite maps for fun." His grin faded. Soldier mode activated. We set up a surveillance grid, 3 drones, 6 cameras, solar-powered, encrypted. AI motion filtering. No one steps near your land without leaving a trail, Louise said. As we worked, an old brown sedan pulled up. Milton, my elderly neighbor. He wore his faded Stetson and walked with stubborn dignity, but today he looked worried. "Mark," he said quietly, "if they block this road, I can't get to town. I can't get to the clinic. My heart medication." The words hit like a punch. Milton was 78, lived alone, depended on this road for medical access. If the HOA succeeded, they wouldn't just be taking my land. They'd be cutting off an old man's lifeline. "Milton," I said, "I'm not letting that happen." He nodded slowly, then pulled out a metal box from his truck. Inside, a Super 8 film reel, perfectly preserved. "I took this in '79, Milton said. "Your daddy spreading gravel, you sitting on the tailgate. This road didn't come from no HOA, it came from your family." My throat tightened. Louise took the reel gently. "We can digitize it. If this shows construction before their charter date, it breaks their claim." Milton smiled. "Film doesn't lie, son. People do." As he drove away, I felt the weight settle heavier. This wasn't just about keeping a promise to my father anymore. It was about protecting Milton. About proving something to myself. About not letting fear win. By late afternoon, the pattern was clear. The HOA wasn't backing down. They were accelerating. At 3:12 p.m. grid, a 3 caught 2 silhouettes slipping beneath the west fence. Not retirees, professionals. High-vis vests. Tool belts. A laser theodolite. They were measuring off their forged lot lines, pushing them 12 feet onto my property. Building evidence for a lie. Luis leaned over my shoulder. "They're not leaving this to chance. Every move landed in our system, time-stamped, geotagged. But the real attempt came after dark. At 12:47 a.m., Grid C, one picked up heat signatures. An SUV rolled to a stop. Engine off, lights off, 3 men moving, careful and disciplined. They carried professional geospatial equipment, placing beacons, taking measurements. "They're building a ghost map," Luis whispered. Then, as the SUV shifted to leave, the interior dome light flickered on for 1 heartbeat. Luis froze the feed, enhanced it. A face formed, sharp, cold. Victoria Crane, HOA president, sitting in a dark SUV at 12:47 a.m., overseeing fraudulent surveying. Luis whistled softly. "That's conspiracy, direct oversight, felony-level intent. We had her. But that night, after Luis left, I sat alone in the dark. The evidence was strong. The case was solid. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking the same path my father had walked, and it had killed him. I pulled out that photo again. My father's face. His smile. "Promise me." "I'm trying, Dad," I whispered. "But I don't know if I'm strong enough." The mountains didn't answer. They never do. Court day arrived faster than I was ready for. The preliminary hearing, where Judge Porter would decide if the HOA's claims had enough merit to proceed. Trevor and I walked into the small Flathead County courtroom. Sunlight striped the wooden benches through vertical blinds. Victoria Crane sat across the aisle. Pearls, powder blue blazer, expression of wounded dignity. Her attorney, a silk-suited man named Dwyer, stood with surgical precision. "Your Honor, my clients have endured intimidation and violence from Mr. Holloway. He painted me as volatile, dangerous, called the guard I'd dumped. A licensed security officer described my bypass as reckless endangerment. Then he presented my own drone footage, me raking gravel, clearing drainage, as unauthorized construction without permit. Victoria allowed herself a small, triumphant smile. Trevor rose calmly. "Your Honor, the defense presents 3 categories of evidence." He showed the 1,968 BLM servitude record establishing the road as private. Then Milton's digitized Super 8 film. My father appeared 45 years younger, shoveling stone. Me beside him, 5 years old, boots swinging. The courtroom fell silent. This wasn't paperwork. This was memory. Truth. Then Trevor showed Luis's drone footage. Nighttime surveying. The SUV. Dome light flicker. Victoria Crane's face staring out like a hawk. The HOA president supervising illegal surveying to falsify county records. This is coordinated fraud. Victoria shot to her feet. That video is taken out of... Porter slammed his gavel. Miss Crane, sit down. He turned to Dwyer. Counselor, explain why your client was present during illicit surveying. Dwyer opened his mouth. Stopped. Looked at Victoria. Then stepped an inch away from her. Your Honor, counsel was unaware of these circumstances. Translation. She lied to me. Victoria's face drained of color. Judge Porter studied the evidence for what felt like hours. Then he spoke, and my world stopped. I'm ruling in favor of a temporary injunction. Mr. Holloway, you are ordered to cease use of the disputed section pending full trial. My chest constricted. Your Honor, the fraud allegations will be addressed at full trial, but given Mr. Holloway's documented confrontation and his history, I'm exercising caution. Trevor grabbed my arm. Mark, don't. Full trial is scheduled 8 weeks from today. The gavel fell. Victoria smiled, cold. Victorious, we walked out in crushing silence. The hallway felt too bright, too loud. People brushing past us, their conversations meaningless noise. Trevor stopped at the courthouse steps. Mark, listen. 8 weeks, I said, voice hollow. Milton can't wait 8 weeks for his heart medication. I know. We'll file an emergency motion for access. The judge used my service record against me. My PTSD. The thing that taught me discipline and control, he twisted it into instability. Trevor put a hand on my shoulder. Mark, we're going to win at full trial. I promise you, don't. I pulled away. Don't promise. My father got promises. He got lawyers and petitions and temporary rulings. And it killed him. I walked to my truck and sat there for a long time, hands on the steering wheel, engine off. The parking lot emptied around me. The sun moved across the sky, and I just sat, breathing, trying to push down the tightness in my chest that had nothing to do with exertion. When I finally started the engine and drove home, I didn't head to the ranch. I drove to the cemetery. The sun was setting when I reached my father's grave. Long shadows stretched across the headstones, like fingers reaching for something they'd never touch. I stood there for a long moment, just breathing, just existing in the space between who I was and who I was becoming. Robert Holloway, 1955 to 2021. He loved this land. I'm losing, Dad, I whispered, just like you did. Wind cut through the pines, cold and sharp. Trevor says we might lose at full trial, says the judge is biased, says Victoria has connections we can't fight. My throat tightened. I promised you I'd protect this land, but I'm starting to understand why you couldn't, why it broke you. I sat down on the frozen ground, back against his headstone. It's not the fight itself, it's the grinding, the way it gets inside you and won't let go, the sleepless nights, the constant vigilance, the way your chest tightens every time you hear a car on your road. I pulled out my phone and looked at that old photo. Me and him. The road. His smile. I can feel it happening, I said quietly. The same thing that happened to you. My hands shake sometimes now. I wake up at 3 a.m. and can't go back to sleep. I hear sounds that aren't there. A tear ran down my cheek. I didn't wipe it away. The retention strap, popping that sound, brought everything back. The war, the fear, the feeling of being trapped, and I handled it, Dad. I did everything right, but the judge saw it as instability, as danger. I looked up at the darkening sky. What if I'm not strong enough? What if keeping this promise kills me the same way it killed you? The stone was cold against my back, solid, real. I don't know how to quit. You taught me that. But I also don't know how to survive this without breaking. I sat there as night fell completely. Stars appearing one by one in the vast Montana sky, and for the first time since leaving the war, I felt like I was drowning. Not in water, in memories, in pressure. In the weight of promises I couldn't keep and fights I couldn't win. My phone buzzed. "Trevor, don't give up. We'll find a way." I stared at the message. Then, headlights swept across the cemetery. A vehicle approaching. Milton's old sedan pulled up near the entrance. He got out slowly, leaning heavily on his cane, and walked toward me through the darkness. "Mark," he called softly, "knew I'd find you here." I didn't answer, didn't move. He sat down beside me with a grunt, back against the neighboring headstone. For a long minute, neither of us spoke. "Heard about the hearing," he finally said. "Came to check on you." "I'm fine," I lied. He made a sound, half laugh, half sigh. "No, you're not, son. You look exactly like your daddy did 3 years ago, right before he didn't finish." "Didn't need to. I'm going to lose this," I said quietly. "And when I do, you won't be able to get your medication. You'll be trapped. And my father's land, everything he died for." "Mark," Milton's voice cut through my spiral. Firm, almost harsh. "Look at me." I turned. His eyes caught what little light the stars provided. Wise, tired, but steady. "Your daddy fought alone," he said. "Tried to carry everything by himself. Wouldn't accept help. Wouldn't share the burden. That's what killed him. Not the developers. The isolation." He shifted, bones creaking. "I knew your father for 40 years. Watched him build that road. Watched him raise you. Watched him turn inward when the trouble started. I tried to help him. Offered to testify. Offered to split legal costs. He wouldn't hear it. Said it was his fight, his land, his responsibility." Milton's hand found my shoulder. Grip, surprisingly strong. "But you're different. You called Trevor. You brought in Luis. You're documenting everything. You're not carrying this alone." "It doesn't matter," I said. "The judge already decided." "The judge made a temporary ruling based on incomplete information," Milton interrupted. "That's not the end. That's just a battle. Not the war." He squeezed my shoulder. "And you want to know something? Even if we lose, even if Victoria gets that road, I'll be okay. I'll find another way to town. I'll move if I have to. But you," he turned my face toward his, "you will not die on this hill like your father did. You hear me? This land is important, but your life is more important. And if keeping this promise kills you, then the promise ain't worth keeping." The words hit like a slap. My father. "Your father loved you more than he loved this land," Milton said fiercely. "You think he'd want you to follow him into the grave? You think that promise was meant to destroy you?" He pulled me closer. "Mark, your daddy's last words to me. Not to you, to me. 2 days before he died, you know what he said?" I shook my head. He said, "Milton, if something happens to me, don't let Mark make the same mistake I did. Don't let him think the land matters more than living." My breath caught. He was dying, and he knew it. Milton continued, "And his biggest regret wasn't losing the fight. It was teaching you that losing made you weak, that giving up made you a failure." Tears ran freely now. "I couldn't stop them." "Your father wanted you to have this land," Milton said softly, "but he wanted you alive even more. So if we lose, if Victoria wins, then we find another way to live. Together, not alone." He stood slowly, offering me his hand. "Come on, son. Let's get you home. Tomorrow we'll figure out the next move. But tonight, you need to rest. You need to eat. You need to remember that you're not your father, and you don't have to repeat his mistakes." I took his hand and let him pull me to my feet. We stood there in the darkness, two men who'd lost too much but refused to lose each other. "Thank you," I whispered. "Don't thank me yet," Milton said. "Thank me when we win. What if we don't?" He smiled small, sad, but real. "Then we'll still be standing, and that's victory enough." We walked back to our vehicles together, and for the first time since the preliminary hearing, I felt something other than despair. Not hope exactly, but something close. The will to try one more time. The next 8 weeks were the longest of my life, but we didn't wait for trial sitting still. Trevor filed motions. Luis expanded surveillance. And I documented everything, every HOA vehicle, every suspicious movement, every attempted intimidation. And then, 2 days before trial, something broke wide open. A local news investigation aired. HOA president's financial crisis, Victoria Crane's husband's company, had filed bankruptcy 18 months ago, $2.4 million in debt. Their home was in foreclosure. The reporter's voice. Sources say Miss Crane desperately needed the Holloway land sale to avoid financial ruin. The question is, how far would she go? The story went viral. By morning, 3 board members had resigned. The county launched an audit, and Victoria, she made her first mistake. She gave an interview defending herself. Mr. Holloway is unstable, she said on camera. A danger to the community. The HOA is simply protecting residents from, the interviewer cut in, but you were filmed at midnight overseeing illegal surveying on his property. Victoria's face went white. That's taken out of context. The timestamp and GPS coordinates are clear, Miss Crane. Her composure cracked. Live. On camera. I was protecting the community. People like him, they don't understand order. They don't understand what happens when there's no control. The interview cut off abruptly, but the damage was done. By the time trial arrived, public opinion had shifted completely. The courtroom was packed wall to wall. News cameras lined the back. Reporters scribbled notes. Neighbors from 3 counties filled every seat. I sat beside Trevor at the defense table, hands folded, trying to look calm. But inside, my heart hammered against my ribs. Victoria sat across the aisle at the plaintiff's table. Something had changed since the preliminary hearing. She looked thinner, paler, dark circles under her eyes. Her hands trembled slightly when she reached for her water glass. Her silk suit didn't fit quite right anymore. Like she'd lost weight she couldn't afford to lose. Behind her sat 3 remaining HOA board members. They sat as far from her as the table allowed. Nobody met anyone else's eyes. Judge Porter entered. Everyone stood. He settled into his chair, adjusted his glasses, and surveyed the room with the tired expression of a man who'd seen too many neighbor disputes turn ugly. Let's proceed, he said. Dwyer stood. His opening statement was different this time, weaker, more defensive. Your Honor, my client has served Blackstone Ridge Estates faithfully for 6 years. She's organized community events, maintained property values, ensured safety and order. Yes, there have been misunderstandings about property lines, but these are honest mistakes made by someone trying to protect her community. He gestured toward me. Mr. Holloway is a decorated Marine. We respect his service, but military training sometimes makes civilian disputes feel like combat situations. The guard at the gate was simply doing his job when Mr. Holloway assaulted him. Objection, Trevor said calmly. Mischaracterizes evidence already presented. Sustained, Porter said. Mr. Dwyer, stick to facts. Dwyer nodded stiffly. The HOA simply wanted to ensure road maintenance was properly coordinated. That's not fraud. That's community stewardship. He sat down. Then Trevor rose. He didn't rush, didn't make dramatic gestures. Just stood there, letting the silence settle, letting the courtroom lean forward. Your Honor, he said quietly, new evidence has come to light since the preliminary hearing. Evidence that changes everything. He pulled out a folder. The county conducted a financial audit of Blackstone Ridge Estates HOA at our request. What they found is illuminating. He slid documents toward the clerk. Miss Crane's personal financial situation is catastrophic. Her husband's company filed Chapter 7 bankruptcy 18 months ago. Total debt, $2.4 million. Their home entered foreclosure proceedings 6 months ago. The bank threatened seizure. Murmurs swept through the gallery. Trevor continued, voice steady. Miss Crane needed the Holloway land sale, desperately. Not for community benefit, for personal survival. The proposed development would have generated a $600,000 commission, enough to stop the foreclosure and pay down debt. Victoria's face had gone ghostly white. But there's more, Trevor said. We have testimony from a witness who can verify the forged documents. He gestured to the bailiff. Your Honor, the defense calls Edward Mallory. The county official walked to the stand, early 60s. Gray suit, uncomfortable expression. Trevor approached him gently. Mr. Mallory, you're the Assistant Director of Municipal Infrastructure Review for Flathead County? Yes, and your signature appears on the HOA's petition regarding Mr. Holloway's road, correct? It does. Trevor held up the document. Is this your signature? Mallory leaned forward, studied it carefully, took his time. Then he sat back. No, that's not my signature. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Trevor kept his voice calm. How can you be certain? I've signed thousands of documents over 20 years. I know my own hand. Look at the M. Whoever forged this used too much pressure. And the loop on the Y is wrong. I don't loop my Ys like that. He pointed to specific differences. Professional. Clinical. Devastating. Do you have any knowledge of who might have forged your signature? Trevor asked. Mallory hesitated, glanced at Victoria. She was gripping the table edge so hard her knuckles had gone white. 2 weeks ago, Mallory said slowly, I received an anonymous package. No return address. Inside was a USB drive. Trevor approached the bench. Your Honor, Defense Exhibit C, security footage from Flathead County Records Office. The courtroom screen flickered to life. Date stamp, the 14th of November, 2024, 9:17 p.m. The county office, empty except for one person, Victoria Crane. She walked to the filing cabinets, looked around nervously, then pulled out a document, scanned it with her phone, put it back. Then she accessed the signature stamp drawer, the one used for internal approvals. The footage was grainy but unmistakable. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Judge Porter slammed his gavel. Order! But even he looked shaken. Trevor turned to Dwyer. Your witness. Dwyer stood slowly. He looked like a man who'd just realized he was standing on a trapdoor. Mr. Mallory, he said carefully, isn't it possible you simply don't remember signing this particular document? You said yourself you signed thousands. I remember every fraudulent one, Mallory cut in, because there aren't any. Until now. Dwyer tried again. The security footage shows Miss Crane in the office, but it doesn't show her forging anything. It shows her accessing restricted files after hours, Mallory said flatly. Files she had no authorization to view. That document appeared in our system 2 days later. I'd call that circumstantial evidence. Dwyer had nothing. He sat down. Trevor wasn't done. Your Honor, the defense calls Dr. Patricia Chen, handwriting analyst. A woman in her 50s took the stand. Credentials: 20 years with the FBI. Expert testimony in 43 federal cases. Trevor showed her the signature. Dr. Chen, what's your professional opinion? She adjusted her glasses. This is a moderately skilled forgery. The forger attempted to match the original, but lacked access to enough samples. 3 indicators stand out: pressure variation, stroke acceleration, and terminal positioning. This signature was written slowly, carefully trying to copy. Real signatures flow unconsciously. This one was performed. And your conclusion? Not authentic. Dwyer declined to cross-examine. What could he say? Then Trevor dropped the final bomb. Your Honor, the defense calls Marcus Holloway. I walked to the stand, hand on the Bible, oath administered. Trevor approached me like we'd rehearsed. Mr. Holloway, how long have you maintained that road? 18 years. My father and I built it together. And has the HOA ever contributed to its maintenance? Never. Not once. Have they ever asked permission to access it? No. Did you give permission for the gate installation? Absolutely not. Trevor paused. Mr. Holloway, you're a decorated Marine. 3 tours in Afghanistan, Combat experience. Some people might say that makes you prone to aggression. I took a breath. This was the hard part. I have PTSD, I said quietly. From my service. Certain sounds trigger memories. The retention strap popping that sound brought me back to places I've spent 3 years trying to forget. The courtroom went silent. But I didn't lose control, I continued. I defended myself within legal parameters. I documented everything. I followed proper procedure. Because my father taught me that truth needs evidence, and evidence needs discipline. Trevor nodded. No further questions. Dwyer stood for cross-examination. He looked desperate. Mr. Holloway, you admit you have PTSD. Isn't it possible your condition caused you to overreact? No. You threw a security guard to the ground after he unsnapped his weapon retention strap. Montana statute recognizes that as a threat. I responded appropriately. Dwyer tried again. But your mental state, my mental state, I said evenly, doesn't change Montana law. It doesn't make forgery legal. It doesn't give the HOA jurisdiction over my land. Dwyer had nothing left. Judge Porter looked at the evidence spread before him, at the forged signature, at the security footage, at the financial desperation. His expression had shifted from tired skepticism to something harder. Cold certainty. Miss Crane, did you forge this signature? Victoria stood. Her lawyer whispered urgently, but she pushed him away. Your Honor, I had no choice. My family was going to lose everything. The bank was foreclosing. My husband was, yes or no, Miss Crane. Long, terrible pause. Yes. The courtroom erupted. Porter slammed his gavel. Order! Then he turned to Victoria. You forged county documents. You engaged in fraud. You supervised illegal surveying. You lied to this court, and you did it all to force an innocent man off his own land to save yourself financially. He paused. Miss Crane, you're not protecting anything. You're a criminal. Victoria's face crumpled. Not from shame, from the sudden realization that her world was collapsing. I was trying to protect order, she screamed. People like him, they ruin neighborhoods. They don't understand. Bailiff, Porter said quietly. They approached with handcuffs. Victoria kept screaming. I was protecting the community. Someone has to maintain standards. The cuffs clicked around her wrists. Porter made his final ruling. Roadway 14B is restored exclusively to the Holloway estate. All HOA claims dismissed with prejudice. Miss Crane is remanded to custody pending criminal charges. The gavel fell. The courtroom exploded in applause. Victoria was let out, still protesting, still insisting she'd been right. I sat there, unable to move, unable to breathe. Trevor put a hand on my shoulder. It's done, Mark. I looked at him. We won? We won. Outside, Milton was waiting. When he saw my face, he grinned. Told you we weren't done yet, son. I pulled him into a hug. Thank you for everything. Your daddy would be proud, he whispered. And for the first time in 3 years, I believed it. 3 days later, Victoria Crane was arrested at her home. The news footage showed her in handcuffs, makeup smeared, hair frayed, shouting about political persecution. The HOA collapsed within a week, the charter revoked, the board disbanded, and the gate? Gone, jackhammered to dust. A month later, I stood at my father's grave again, but this time, I wasn't asking for strength. It's done, Dad, I said. The land is safe. Milton can get his medication. And I'm still standing. I placed my hand on the cold stone. I kept my promise, both promises. I protected the land, and I didn't let it kill me. Wind rustled through pines like whispered approval. I walked back down to my truck and drove home. When I reached the spot where the gate had been, I stopped. A new sign stood there now. Steel. Permanent. Bold letters. Private road. Holloway Estate built 1979 by Robert and Mark Holloway, not for sale. Not now, not ever. I smiled. That night, I sat at my kitchen table and built the website I'd been planning during those long, sleepless nights. backoffmyland.com. The homepage was simple, clean, direct. Fighting AOA overreach? You're not alone. I posted everything: the forged documents, the security footage, the court transcripts, templates for cease and desist letters, guides for documenting harassment, a whole section on easement rights with downloadable PDFs. Then I wrote one paragraph. I'm a Montana rancher who almost lost everything to an HOA that rewrote property lines, forged signatures, and used my PTSD against me. They counted on me being isolated. They were wrong. This site exists so you won't be alone either. Document everything. Trust the truth, and never let anyone make you feel crazy for defending what's yours. I hit publish at 11 p.m. By morning, the site had 2,000 members. By the end of the week, 15,000. Stories poured in from across the country. A farmer in Utah fighting a phantom easement that appeared on county maps but nowhere in his deed. A retired teacher in Arizona whose HOA tried claiming her driveway because it crossed community aesthetics boundaries. A family in Colorado hit with $47,000 in fines for violations that didn't, quotes, exist. Each story was different, but the pattern was the same. HOAs finding vulnerable targets, using bureaucracy as a weapon, counting on isolation to win. One message hit me harder than the rest. From a widow in Oregon. My husband fought our HOA for 3 years. The stress gave him a heart attack. He died 2 weeks before his court date. I sold the house for half its value just to escape. Your story gave me the courage to file a wrongful death suit. Thank you for not giving up. I read it 3 times. Then I showed it to Milton. This, he said quietly, tapping the screen. This is why your father would be proud. Not because you kept the land, because you're helping others keep theirs. 2 weeks later, the settlement came through. $330,000 for damages, legal fees, and loss of access. Money wasn't the victory, but I put it to use. I had a concrete pad poured at the exact spot where the HOA's gate had been, set a thick steel post into the center one that wouldn't budge even if a truck hit it. Then I mounted the sign, black powder coat. Raised letters. Bold as truth. Private road. Holloway estate built 1979. By Robert and Mark Holloway. Not for sale. Not now. Not ever. But I added one more line at the bottom. In memory of all who fight for what's theirs. The day we unveiled it, Milton organized something I hadn't expected. A gathering. 20 neighbors showed up. People I'd barely spoken to in years. Ranchers, retirees, families who'd heard what happened and wanted to show support. We stood there at the sign as the sun set behind the mountains, turning the valley gold. Milton raised his coffee mug. To Mark's father, who taught us all that some things are worth defending, and to Mark, who taught us that you don't have to fight alone. Everyone raised their drinks. To Robert, they said in unison. Then Milton turned to me, and to the son who kept his promise without losing himself. My throat tightened. I couldn't speak, but I raised my mug. And we stood there together, a community that had learned what community actually meant, not rules and bylaws and forced conformity, but showing up when someone needs you, standing together when the fight gets hard. Refusing to let isolation win. Later that night, I hiked up to the ridge overlooking my road one final time. The sun had set. Stars filled the sky, so many you couldn't count them all. I looked down at the 11-mile stretch of road winding through timber and rock. My road, our road, his road, and I felt something I hadn't felt in 3 years. Peace. Not because I'd won, but because I'd survived winning without becoming what the fight tried to make me. I pulled out my phone and looked at that old photo one last time. My father's smile. My younger self beside him, both of us covered in dust from a day's work. I kept the promise, Dad, I whispered. Both promises. The land is safe, and I'm still here. Wind rustled through pines. Milton told me what you said to him, about not letting me make your mistakes, about living mattering more than winning. I touched the screen, tracing his face. You were right. The land is important, but it's not worth dying for. It's worth living for. And that's what I'm going to do. I stood there until the cold drove me back down the mountain. When I reached home, a light was on in the kitchen. Milton's truck was parked in my driveway. I walked inside and found him at my table, 2 mugs of coffee waiting. Figured you'd need company tonight, he said simply. I sat down across from him, took the mug, let the warmth seep into my hands. Thank you, I said, for everything, for the film, for showing up, for reminding me I wasn't alone. He waved it off. That's what neighbors do. No, I said, that's what family does. His eyes got shiny. He blinked fast and cleared his throat. Your daddy would have liked that, he said gruffly. Would have liked knowing you had people. We sat there in comfortable silence. 2 men who'd fought the same fight and lived to tell about it. And somewhere in the dark Montana night, on 11 miles of road carved through rock and memory, the land rested, not owned, not controlled, not conquered, just home.